listening to the JR McGee Show. To participate on the show, call us and leave a voicemail. Our number is 267-935-9042. You can also email JR McGee your thoughts or questions you'd like him to address. Just send us an email to jrmcgeeradio@gmail.com. Now, from WMPV Lansdale, here is JR McGee.
Good evening, and welcome to another edition of your weekly intelligence briefing. We're going to continue to look at news that should be in the news. And tonight, we're going back to the Middle East. There are things that are taking place in the Middle East as we speak that could be dramatic. There's as many as 100,000 to 150,000 people in the Gaza Strip massing on the border with Israel, and there are some significant protests planned. Now, these protests could be the first nonviolent protests that the Palestinians have engaged in. That would be incredibly good and very, very positive. Or this could be a prelude to war. The civilians could actually be a cover for Hamas to use to attack Israel. We're not sure yet, but before we do that, I want to get into some of the details to kind of set the table to help us understand how we got to this point. And I am on location again this week. I'm in Princeton, New Jersey. I'm giving a series of speeches at Princeton. So I'm recording this on Thursday night. So some of these things may have begun to take place by the time you hear this on Sunday night. I want to look at some of the things that set this into motion. And one of the key things is President Trump proclaimed Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Now, he made it very clear that that proclamation did not determine the division of the land. It did not determine percentages of who got what. It was simply a recognition that Israel themselves have declared Jerusalem as their capital, and we're moving our embassy to the capital of Israel, which is Jerusalem. That set into motion some significant events. We talked a couple of weeks ago about Mohammed bin Salman, the new crown prince of Saudi Arabia. He called Mahmoud Abbas to Saudi Arabia for consultations. And this was to begin to discuss the beginnings of a new peace plan. And it was a peace plan that the Palestinians were not going to appreciate. They were very upset about the new terms and conditions that Jordan, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia were putting into place to come to some type of definitive resolution of this situation. The Palestinians then went to the United Nations, and they got some support from the United Nations. And the United Nations, it's just a fact, the United Nations is extremely anti-Israel. And so the Palestinians got support from the United Nations, but the United Nations doesn't have a lot of power. They can't make things happen. They can certainly give credence and credibility, they can give political cover, and they have. So Mahmoud Abbas was called to Saudi Arabia. That changed the entire dynamic for the peace initiative in the Middle East and its movement. And for 40 years, people have been talking. People have been having summits. They had the Rose Garden Summit with Jimmy Carter. They had the White House Summit with Bill Clinton. They had the Oslo agreements. They've had all kinds of meetings, and yet nothing has truly changed on the ground. It is still as divided, it is still as contested, and it is still as hostile as it has ever been. That is beginning to change, and the Palestinians now see that they have got a situation that they're no longer controlling. For years and years, they could simply wait because every deal they got was better than the deal before. So time was clearly on their side. I think, as I said in one of my earlier shows, that train has now left the station. Time is no longer on the side of the Palestinians. They need to make something happen to get back in control of the situation. And what we're seeing is that they're taking steps to use their civilian population to do things that the militant arm of Hamas has not been able to do in the past. Now, there's a couple of other things that have taken place this week that have been truly significant. One is the Jerusalem District Court made a ruling this week that the Israelis could carry out the Passover ceremony, which is the sacrifice of the paschal lamb on the eve of Passover, which is ironically tonight as we're broadcasting this. That ceremony is taking place. And it's also on Friday evening. It's done twice. And the lamb is sacrificed, and then they use unleavened bread, which is called matzah. That's where matzah balls come from. And they eat bitter herbs. Now, this is the Passover meal. The Israelis, the Hebrews, have not been able to truly celebrate Passover at the Temple Mount, which is also where the Islamic temple is. There's a lot of contested area in that. And frankly, the Muslims have reacted to this in a very big way. They have decided that they're not too happy about this, and that shouldn't come as a shock or a surprise to anyone. The Hebrew Torah mandates the sacrifice of this lamb for the Passover, and it is something that they have done from time immemorial until they lost control of the Temple Mount in AD 70 when the temple was destroyed. The Arabs, the Islamic religious leaders, have responded to this very negatively, as you may imagine. The Temple Mount is the holiest of the Hebrew temple areas, and it's the third holiest for the Islamic. And Sheikh Ikram Sabri, who's the Imam of Al-Aqsa, and Al-Aqsa is the name of the mosque on the Temple Mount, close to the Dome of the Rock. He is the head religious leader for the Islamists. And he said on Tuesday of this week, "We will not recognize the court's decision because it has no right to discuss this subject. The decision harms and provokes the faithful," and the faithful are the Islamics, the Muslims, especially as this Friday marks Land Day. And this was in the Ynet News, which is an Islamic newspaper in Jerusalem. This ceremony is provoking a lot of passion. It's provoking a lot of emotions. And it is bringing things to a head. So there's some interesting things going on with this. And I think this is playing a part in everything that we're seeing that's going on this week. Another issue that occurred this week is also related to one of my first shows, and that was when the Israeli F-16 was shot down over a mission in Syria. Well, this week there is strong evidence that Israel flew 2 of its brand new F-35 stealth fighter jets that it purchased from the United States. It flew them over Syria, over Iraq, and into Iran. They flew them over the nuclear facilities in Iran. There is, again, strong evidence that they did fly this mission. They have 7 F-35s now that they've purchased from the United States. I think that they've purchased a total of 40, I believe. They've delivered 7. Well, 2 of those were used on a mission. And the Israelis have a different perspective for intel and secrets than the United States does. The United States operates on the prospect that we do not want our enemies to know what we know. We want them to guess. The Israelis operate in the complete opposite. They want their opponents to know exactly what they know. Their theory, their concept of operations is that if we let you know what we know, you're less likely to do what you were going to go do. So I think it follows exactly what I've known and experienced myself in working with the Israelis and some of the Israeli intelligence organizations. I think that they have leaked this because they want both the Russians and the Iranians to know that they flew through Syria, and the Russian S-400 surface-to-air missile systems, which are extremely sophisticated, did not detect either of these planes. They flew through Iraq. No one detected them in Iraq. They flew them into Iran. No one detected them in Iran. They flew them over the most sensitive site in Iran, which is their nuclear facilities. They were not detected. I've heard some people say, well, they can't fly that far. Yeah, they can. I don't want to get into the range because that may be sensitive information, but they absolutely have the range to fly that mission unrefueled. So, some of the other planes that they have do not have that capability, but the F-35s could fly that mission. So I think that they want the Russians to know. I think they want the Iranians to know that they can go there. In fact, I can kind of hear that conversation. This is in my own head, but I would think that conversation would go something like this. Hey guys, here's some photographs we took over your facilities, and we took pictures of downtown also. You see in the town square there, that town square is kind of dirty. Don't you guys ever clean that up? You know what? We'll provide you some more pictures in the future, and anytime the streets need sweeping, we'll let you know so you can clean it up. I think that's exactly what they did, because they want Iranians to be a little concerned that they have capabilities that the Iranians didn't think that they have. So I believe they absolutely flew this mission. Now, how does this tie back in to what the Palestinians are doing? This, again, is changing the dynamic and the balance of power in the Middle East. And the Palestinians are desperately trying to regain the initiative that they lost when Donald Trump pulled the rug out from under them. So they're trying to find ways to get back into a position where they're calling the shots. And I think that they see this opportunity to do this mass demonstration on the border with Israel to do two things. I think it's designed to force Israel to take action. And they're hoping that that action produces casualties. I think that they've learned that the West will criticize and condemn Israel for any casualties. So I want to take a look in the next segment at exactly what's going on. I want to look at what they've put into place and what they've done in the past 2 weeks to prepare for this. So we're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to dig more in to these protests that are now beginning to take place.
At Buckman's, we're passionate about skiing, snowboarding, and having fun with friends and family. Everything we do, from the gear we carry to the services we offer, is driven by this passion. Since our first shop opened in 1971 until today, we are proud that all our stores are family-owned and operated. Our online store, buckmans.com, also reflects this passion. When you order from us, an actual skier or snowboarder ships your order out of an actual shop, not some giant warehouse. It's our mission to share our love for the outdoors with you, so you and your loved ones can experience winter to its fullest. You may not have heard of us, but if you want that mom and pop feel, combined with the expert knowledge and award-winning service that comes from over 45 years of experience, why not give us a try? Buckmans.com.
Are you frustrated having the same conversation with your people over and over and they just don't get it? Develop the ability to better understand your customers' motivations and have a positive impact on their decisions to significantly benefit you and your organization. Dynamic profiling is an extremely powerful leadership tool that allows you to understand what people are saying and, more importantly, why they say it. Dynamic profiling is powerful, practical, and fast. Unlike personality assessments, this allows you to deeply understand others in real time through simple conversation and observations. Dynamic profiling will also improve your hiring decisions, reduce turnover and increase productivity, increase your sales closure rates, improve customer relations, and much more. Dynamic profiling builds on your current understanding of personalities in order to quickly understand anyone through a 30 to 90 second routine, normal, casual conversation. Contact us today at info@x-slg.com or 610-908-2223 to learn how you can become a dynamic profiler.
I want to take a second and tell you about some really good friends of mine. Buckman's Ski and Snowboard Shops. Staying warm is important for every skier and snowboarder. The secret to warmth is found in what you wear, and the key is layering. At Buckman's Ski and Snowboard Shops, you'll find the biggest selection of long underwear, fleece pullovers, vests, jackets, pants, and shells. You'll also find hundreds of gloves, mittens, hats, neck-ups, and socks you can choose from. So, get outside and stay warm this winter. Stop by Buckman's Ski and Snowboard Shops in King of Prussia, Ardmore, Montgomeryville, Doylestown, Reading, Whitehall, and Exton, PA. Or you can visit them online at buckmans.com.
You're listening to the JR McGee Show. To participate on the show, call us and leave a voicemail. Our number is 267-935-9042. You can also email JR McGee your thoughts or questions you'd like him to address. Just send us an email to jrmcgeeradio gmail.com. Now, from WMPV Lansdale, here is JR McGee.
Welcome back. And tonight, we're looking at some of the Gaza activities in the Middle East, the Gaza protests in particular. And the question for tonight is this the first nonviolent peace action that the Palestinians have engaged in, or is it the cover for the start of another major war in the Middle East? I want to take a real hard look at some of this and see what's going on over there. Now, in the last segment, we talked about the Israelis flying a mission into Iran, and I gave you a hypothetical on how they were teasing the Iranians. And I believe that especially since the F-16 was shot down, the Israelis need to show that they still have dominance over the skies. They still have air superiority. So that's another element that makes me truly believe that they did fly this mission. There's no absolute proof of any of this, but I've confirmed it from several different sources. It fits with what I know and what I've experienced in the past, and I believe that it meets the strategic national interest of Israel to show that they still have air superiority. So I think that that did occur. And it also occurred in the face of what Hamas has been doing in the Gaza Strip for the last 2 weeks. Let's take a look at some of the actions that they've been doing. Last week, on Sunday, Hamas carried out the largest military exercise they've ever carried out. Now, Hamas has always been a very loosely federated terrorist organization that was attempting to govern, and they didn't govern well. In fact, they governed so poorly that in 2017, last year, they had to relinquish control of the Gaza Strip administration-wise back to Fatah and Mahmoud Abbas in the Western Bank. That was a significant loss of face for Hamas. It was very embarrassing. In fact, it was downright humiliating. So Hamas also needs to reestablish her dominance in the region. And I think one of the things that they're doing is they're trying to show that they're no longer this loosely federated terrorist organization. In fact, they're beginning to call themselves now an army, and they're trying to act like an army. In fact, on last Sunday, they launched a dozen rockets, not towards Israel, but they launched them out into the Mediterranean. They launched them out to sea, to test. They also had 4 brigades of individuals. That's a large number of people. And for the first time, they were operating in coordination and cooperation. They were commanded and controlled as 4 units in one exercise. They've never done that before. This is brand new. This is a major escalation, both in capability and intent. This is significant. Now, the Hamas did something else on Sunday. They had acquired some Merkava tanks. Now, Israel has sold Merkava tanks. That's their main battle tank. They've sold Merkava battle tanks around the world, and Hamas has gotten their hands on some of these from some other countries. And they brought them in, and they were doing exercises against the Merkava tanks to learn how to attack them, to teach their people the weak spots. This is also very significant. I mean, this is a significant escalation for what Hamas has done in the past. This is a significant increase in capability. It's a substantial increase in their command and control capabilities and in the discipline for their troops and their soldiers. So this is a very significant situation. That's not all they did. They have tested. They've done 4 operations now, as of this morning, where they've sent individuals and small groups of 3 or 4 people through the lines. They've taken wire cutters, they've taken bolt cutters. Some of them were armed with knives and hand grenades and rifles. Some of them were not armed with anything other than the bolt cutters and knives. But they've had 4 incursions where they have crossed the fence. They have gotten through the border security. And what's compelling in this, all 4 occasions, they were able to penetrate into Israel, and in 2 cases, they conducted sabotage. In one, it was very significant. They attacked and damaged a crane. Now, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but Israel's developed new technology for detecting tunnels and destroying tunnels. and they're building new types of walls with a significant underground component with sensors and electronics to help them detect digging. And this crane was specially modified for installing those new modified wall sections. And the Palestinians were able to enter Israel through the fence. They were not detected, and they were able to damage this equipment. I'm sorry, but now that's a bad thing. And I think the Israeli IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, and their security services need to answer for this. They knew that the situation was ramping up and escalating. They knew that there were a lot of people who were testing the border and testing the fences, and yet these people still got through, and they were still able to damage equipment and in one case injure some people. They did it 4 times in 1 week since last Sunday. Something is going on. Something different is happening, and I think it's significant. Hamas has also begun to construct tent cities up against the fence. They put the tents, the housing facilities, as close to the fence as they possibly could. And a lot of tents. Like I said, they're planning on a minimum of 100,000 people and as many as 150,000 people for up to 6 weeks. The intent for this is they're going to escalate the protests. And it's going to start on Passover. It's going to start on Friday, which is tomorrow. You're going to be hearing this broadcast on Sunday evening. I'm recording it on Thursday evening because I'm out of town again. But this is going to start Friday evening, Passover. And it's going to begin, and they say that it's going to be peaceful. I hope that it's peaceful. I encourage it if it's peaceful. And it's going to involve an awful lot of people who are trying to protest the fact that the fence is there. Now, the intent, what has been leaked out and what they're preparing for, is to escalate these protests. And what they're saying is they're going to have the civilians begin to press the fence. What that means is they're going to have the women and children push as hard as they can against the fence. And if there's 100,000 of them in a very small area, they'll be able to overwhelm the fence and push it down and then swarm into Israel. That sounds innocuous. But what I have seen and what I fear will happen is a lot of those women and children are going to be injured in that. They're going to be crushed in that push to trample the wall. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to see people injured in this. I don't want to see this degenerate into something where it escalates with casualties on both sides. Israel's got a lot of different things that they can do. They're trying to figure out how to deal with this peacefully. The United Nations has already made it known, no matter who gets hurt, no matter why they get hurt, Israel's fault, Palestinians' fault, nobody's fault. Israel's going to get blamed for it. So Israel is trying very hard to figure out how they're going to address this situation. What are they going to do to control their borders? And frankly, every country in the world has the right to control their borders. There's borders on every country. Try to go into North Korea without permission. Try to go into Iran without permission. Try to go into Russia without permission. Criminy. Try to go into China without permission, and you will immediately be arrested and prosecuted. It doesn't matter what country you're in. If you try to enter that country without permission, you're going to be arrested. In the last month, I have been on heavy travel. I've been to London. A week later, I went to Bangkok. Last week, I was in Brazil, and I'm going to the Dominican Republic next. Every one of those countries has required me to have a passport. They've required me to have visas. They've required me to have permission to get into and to get out of that country. Every country has the right to secure their borders. And I think Israel has the right to secure their borders. And the Palestinians are trying to demolish those borders, and they're trying to have what they're calling a march of return. They want to have freedom of access into Israel, which is Israeli territory. So I think that the potential for this, and we're going to talk more in the next segment about what all's going on and what it means and the potential that this has to escalate into violence. I desperately hope that this is a non-violent protest. And if it is, it'll be the first non-violent protest the Palestinians have engaged in. And I think nonviolent protests are very powerful. We've seen in our own country how powerful nonviolent protest can be. I think that's the way to achieve their goals and objectives. Let's stop for a commercial break, and we'll come back and we'll take a deeper dive into exactly what's happening on the border with Israel and Gaza.
At Buckman's, we're passionate about skiing, snowboarding, and having fun with friends and family. Everything we do, from the gear we carry to the services we offer, is driven by this passion. Since our first shop opened in 1971 until today, we are proud that all our stores are family-owned and operated. Our online store, buckmans.com, also reflects this passion. When you order from us, an actual skier or snowboarder ships your order out of an actual shop, not some giant warehouse. It's our mission to share our love for the outdoors with you, so you and your loved ones can experience winter to its fullest. You may not have heard of us, but if you want that mom and pop feel, combined with the expert knowledge and award-winning service that comes from over 45 years of experience, why not give us a try? Buckmans.com.
I want to take a second and tell you about some really good friends of mine. Buckman's ski and snowboard shops. Staying warm is important for every skier and snowboarder. The secret to warmth is found in what you wear, and the key is layering. At Buckman's ski and snowboard shops, you'll find the biggest selection of long underwear, fleece pullovers, vests, jackets, pants, and shells. You'll also find hundreds of gloves, mittens, hats, neck-ups, and socks you can choose from. So, get outside and stay warm this winter. Stop by Buckman's ski and snowboard shops in King of Prussia, Ardmore, Montgomeryville, Doylestown, Reading, Whitehall, and Exton, PA. Or you can visit them online at buckmans.com.
You're listening to the JR McGee Show. To participate on the show, call us and leave a voicemail. Our number is 267-935-9042. You can also email JR McGee your thoughts or questions you'd like him to address. Just send us an email to jrmcgeeradio@gmail.com. Now, from WMPV Lansdale, here is JR McGee.
Welcome back. And tonight, we're back in the Middle East again because there's a lot of significant activity, some things that could be extremely compelling and frankly very concerning. These protests in Gaza, the question tonight for us is this the first nonviolent peace action or a cover for the start of another war in the Middle East? In this segment, I want to look at what is the true objective of the Palestinians. What are they truly trying to achieve? Now, both of my advanced degrees are in strategic leadership and strategic thinking. I spend a lot of time working with companies, organizations, and I worked with the military in strategic thinking, strategic planning. And a lot of people talk about strategy, but not a lot of people are very good at strategic thinking. I want to look at tonight with you to see exactly what the strategy is for the Palestinians. Now, the root cause, what's driving all this, is they feel like they've lost control of both the narrative and the peace initiative. They've lost control of their ability to drive the bus, and they're desperately wanting to reassert that leverage. I don't blame them. Doesn't matter what side you're on, you always want to have the advantage. That's just natural human nature. Because they feel like they've lost that initiative, they have to do something to regain that. And so they're beginning to test some new strategies, some new techniques. And these techniques are engaging their civilian population. And strategically, that has worked very well for the Palestinians for the last 40 years. They have found that their civilians give them great cover. They take great leverage from when the civilians are injured. I do not think for a moment. I've worked with the Israelis. I've seen what they do. They go to extraordinary lengths to minimize civilian injuries and casualties. In fact, they call up their homes. They call them on the telephone. They drop leaflets to say, please evacuate this building. It's going to be hit at this precise time. Please leave this building. They go to lengths no other military, including ours, has ever gone to protect the civilians of the other side. And yet, there's always civilian casualties. War is not clean. It is not surgical. It is not precise. The news media has gone to great lengths to help us believe that war is now all laser-guided bombs and we go through the one window and we only take out the person that we're looking for. I can tell you from personal experience, that is not the case. War is still messy. It is dirty. It's a nasty business that no one should want to engage in unless there's just no other way. And it will always result in civilian casualties, no matter who's doing what. If war breaks out, innocent civilians are going to get hurt. That's the nature of war. The Palestinians have learned this. They've used this. In fact, they've created situations to where they have incurred civilian casualties specifically so that they could use them. They use them with the news media. They use them with the United Nations. They use them in the court of public opinion. And I can't blame them for that. They don't have a lot of weapons. They don't have a lot of money. So they have to use what they can use. And they use that because they have found it works. And they're going to use that specific technique, that specific issue in this upcoming initiative where they're going to try to swarm the wall. They're going to try to break down the wall. And I think, even though it's being billed as a nonviolent, peaceful protest action, and I clearly hope that's the case. With all my heart, I hope that's the case, because I would love nothing more than to see progress made in the Middle East and peace result. It's desperately needed. These people on both sides, they need peace. They need to be able to focus on their lives and their personal situation. It's terribly stressful to live under these situations for any length of time, and both sides have lived under these conditions for far too long. There's three things that I think could happen. It could be a peaceful protest, and they gather at the border and they protest, and it creates a lot of visibility, it creates a lot of publicity and a lot of news. And I think that would benefit their position. I think that would bring a great deal of publicity to their situation. I think it would further their cause, and I think it would help them in this initiative to regain some advantage in the negotiations for peace. The second scenario is that this starts out as a peaceful protest, but people get injured by the wall itself, and they're crushed by the people behind them. And these types of injuries can be rather severe. In fact, they can be fatal. People from behind push the people in the front. You reach a point where you can't breathe. It's a terrible, terrible situation. We see this in fires and earthquakes and floods where people are trapped and they try to get out, and they crush the people at the front trying to get out. This is not a good thing. And I think that there's a very high likelihood, a strong probability, that as these protests continue to grow and develop, that there's a strong likelihood that we may see some of these types of injuries. And these protests are scheduled to begin on Passover, which is Friday of this week. They're scheduled to go for 6 weeks. They're scheduled to go through May 15th. And that's the day after the Israeli big celebration day. I think that these dates are not by accident. They've chosen the start and stop dates around high holy days for Israel and very significant days for Israel. And I think that's smart strategically, but they're designed to escalate. I think they'll start out small and they will grow, and we'll see where they go, and we'll see what happens. The third scenario is one that's more nefarious, and that is where Hamas uses these civilians as a cover. I think it's possible that they could use these civilians to mass against the wall and either do one of two things: infiltrate their soldiers in civilian clothing into the middle of these protesters, and when the wall comes down, they flood into Israel to create chaos and military actions. The second scenario is that they simply allow the civilians to suffer the casualties of destroying the wall and overcoming the barriers, and then they come through afterwards to invade Israel. And I think that's the most likely probability that we will see. Although, again, I am continuing to hope that the first probability is the most likely, and that is these are simply nonviolent, peaceful protests. And I think that, again, I'll say it again, if they do that, I think that will further their cause. I think that will help their position. And I think that will gain them tremendous credibility in the court of public opinion. But we're seeing military exercises immediately before this occurs. We're seeing the military break through the fence and use this to test their ability to put saboteurs inside the fence. To have that happen in such close proximity for the scheduled beginnings of these protests, I don't think is a coincidence. I think that there's something significant going on. I think that this is something that we have to watch very carefully. And in the next segment, I'm going to take a look with you at some of the options that Israel might have to control this, to control their borders, to control the protests, and if the wall does come down, to minimize the incursions into Israel. I think that's important, is to take a look at what are the options Israel does have. Let's take a quick commercial break and hear from my friends at Buckman's Snow and Ski Shops.
At Buckman's, we're passionate about skiing, snowboarding, and having fun with friends and family. Everything we do, from the gear we carry to the services we offer, is driven by this passion. Since our first shop opened in 1971 until today, we are proud that all our stores are family-owned and operated. Our online store, buckmans.com, also reflects this passion. When you order from us, an actual skier or snowboarder ships your order out of an actual shop, not some giant warehouse. It's our mission to share our love for the outdoors with you, so you and your loved ones can experience winter to its fullest. You may not have heard of us, but if you want that mom and pop feel, combined with the expert knowledge and award-winning service that comes from over 45 years of experience, why not give us a try? Buckmans.com.
Are you frustrated having the same conversation with your people over and over and they just don't get it? Develop the ability to better understand your customers' motivations and have a positive impact on their decisions to significantly benefit you and your organization. Dynamic profiling is an extremely powerful leadership tool that allows you to understand what people are saying and, more importantly, why they say it. Dynamic profiling is powerful, practical, and fast. Unlike personality assessments, this allows you to deeply understand others in real time through simple conversation and observations. Dynamic profiling will also improve your hiring decisions, reduce turnover and increase productivity, increase your sales closure rates, improve customer relations, and much more. Dynamic profiling builds on your current understanding of personalities in order to quickly understand anyone through a 30 to 90 second routine, normal, casual conversation. Contact us today at info@x-slg.com or 610-908-2223 to learn how you can become a dynamic profiler.
I want to take a second and tell you about some really good friends of mine. Buckman's Ski and Snowboard Shops. Staying warm is important for every skier and snowboarder. The secret to warmth is found in what you wear, and the key is layering. At Buckman's Ski and Snowboard Shops, you'll find the biggest selection of long underwear, fleece pullovers, vests, jackets, pants, and shells. You'll also find hundreds of gloves, mittens, hats, neck-ups, and socks you can choose from. So, get outside and stay warm this winter. Stop by Buckman's Ski and Snowboard Shops in King of Prussia, Ardmore, Montgomeryville, Doylestown, Reading, Whitehall, and Exton, PA. Or you can visit them online at buckmans.com.
You're listening to the JR McGee Show. To participate on the show, call us and leave a voicemail. Our number is 267-935-9042. You can also email JR McGee your thoughts or questions you'd like him to address. Just send us an email to jrmcgeeradio@gmail.com. Now, from WMPV Lansdale, here is JR McGee.
Welcome back. And tonight, we're continuing to look at the Middle East and Gaza. Are we looking at the prelude to peace, or a possibility of a significant war occurring in the Middle East beginning this weekend? You know, I said in the earlier part of the show that the Hamas had launched up to a dozen missiles out into the Mediterranean. There was something else that occurred this week that was significant, and that is a significant compromise of the Israeli Iron Dome missile defense system. Some of you may know what Iron Dome is, some of you may not, so let me explain. It is a surface-to-air missile system controlled by radar that is designed to detect, track, and intercept other missiles, short-range missiles. And Israel has used the Iron Dome system against some of the Hamas and Hezbollah missiles very successfully. They have intercepted hundreds of missiles over the last 4 years. The system continues to be improved. It continues to work better and better. And frankly, it has been a marvel of technology. I think that the United States should be buying some of these Iron Dome systems for our protection. They're incredibly valuable and they have proven to work. This week, something happened, and that is the system was fooled. We call it spoofing in the electronic combat arena. What occurred is Hamas used heavy machine guns, 50 caliber and 20 millimeter caliber machine guns, to fire into Israel. The radar picked up these very large projectiles and identified them because they had the same trajectory, they had the same velocity, and frankly, they had a very similar radar return to missiles. And so the system, the Iron Dome system, fired off several rockets to intercept these. Since they were machine gun rounds and not missiles, there was nothing for them to hit. In the video for tonight's show, I'm going to show the launch where they launched several rockets at this. Now, it sounds like it was an expensive mistake, and it was, because each of those missiles that they fire in return are about $50,000 to $60,000 a piece. Now, that's not much in today's terms for a guided missile, but you launch 10 to 15 missiles at $50,000 to $60,000 each at nothing. That's very expensive. But this was far more insidious than that. This showed the Palestinians that there was a weakness in the Iron Dome software, in the ability of the system to identify and track a threat. If they could set the system off with machine gun fire, that is extremely cheap, and the Palestinians have a tremendous number of machine guns. So this identified a very serious weakness in the Iron Dome system. Now, my degree is in electronic engineering, specializing in radar, and surface-to-air missile systems just happens to be my specialty. It's what I did very early in my career. It's not going to take much for them to identify the software algorithm that this triggered. And they're going to be able to fix that very quickly. And they'll probably do some work with the seeker head and the missile itself. This problem will be fixed very quickly. But where the danger is this shows the Palestinians that it's worth their time and effort to experiment with the Iron Dome system to find additional weaknesses. No system is perfect. No system is foolproof. And this is not the only weakness in the Iron Dome system. So the Palestinians now know that they can test this. They can work at this. They can figure out exactly what to go do. And I think they will. And I think, believe it or not, they've got some very smart people on their side, and they will figure out what to go do. Now, in addition, Israel has some additional things that they can do for the protesters. And it's a layered defense mechanism. They can put up guards, which they're doing. They're putting up large numbers of border guards. But frankly, in the face of 100,000 people, that's a very limited usefulness. So the next thing that they could do is non-lethal interdiction. They can use water cannons. Water cannons can be very effective at turning people back. The problem is they're focused. You can put water cannons on a few people. You can't put water cannons on an awful lot of people. And if they have 100,000 people coming through the fence, they would have to have a lot of water cannons in order to be effective for that. But I think that they probably will use water cannons. We'll probably see on TV water cannons being turned on people. And frankly, that is a humane way to try to control your borders. I think that that's an appropriate way. The next level up is sonic cannons. Sonic cannons are used, and I've actually experienced these. I've been involved in some tests with these in some of the military bases that I've worked at. These are antennas. They're speakers, very large speakers that generate frequencies. Sometimes you can hear them, sometimes you can't. But what I will tell you is you can feel them. And they generate intense discomfort in your ears and in your head. You cannot stand inside the cone of a sonic cannon. You will go back. You will turn around. When I did it, I told myself, I'm going to be the one that I can stand this. I'm going to be able to just take it. I'm going to stand here and show them that I can take it. I lasted less than 5 seconds and I was running. There's no lasting effects whatsoever. It doesn't harm you, but it is so intensely uncomfortable you cannot stand there. I don't know what type of sonic cannons the Israelis have, but this would be a very effective way for them to turn back people from their borders. Those sonic cannons, those speakers can be aimed, and you can aim them over a wide area, and you can be extremely effective at denying people the ability to come into an area with sonic cannons. The next level up would be microwaves. They have microwaves that operate the same way as a microwave oven. It heats you up. It's like being in a very intense sun tanning booth. And it doesn't burn you permanently. It just feels uncomfortable. But it's like you're being sunburned and you cannot stand there. So these are also non-lethal, non-permanent ways that you can use to control large bodies of people. The Israelis are going to have to use everything they can think of to control this many people, to control their borders. I think, again, it's their right to control their borders, but the opportunity for there to be casualties, the opportunity for there to be people hurt is tremendous. And anybody that's hurt, Israel's going to bear the blame for that. So the Israelis are in a terrible situation to try to figure out exactly what to do. I want to go through some more of their options and what this means for us in our last segment.
At Buckman's, we're passionate about skiing, snowboarding, and having fun with friends and family. Everything we do, from the gear we carry to the services we offer, is driven by this passion. Since our first shop opened in 1971 until today, we are proud that all our stores are family-owned and operated. Our online store, buckmans.com, also reflects this passion. When you order from us, an actual skier or snowboarder ships your order out of an actual shop, not some giant warehouse. It's our mission to share our love for the outdoors with you, so you and your loved ones can experience winter to its fullest. You may not have heard of us, but if you want that mom and pop feel, combined with the expert knowledge and award-winning service that comes from over 45 years of experience, why not give us a try? Buckmans.com.
I want to take a second and tell you about some really good friends of mine. Buckman's ski and snowboard shops. Staying warm is important for every skier and snowboarder. The secret to warmth is found in what you wear, and the key is layering. At Buckman's ski and snowboard shops, you'll find the biggest selection of long underwear, fleece pullovers, vests, jackets, pants, and shells. You'll also find hundreds of gloves, mittens, hats, neck-ups, and socks you can choose from. So, get outside and stay warm this winter. Stop by Buckman's ski and snowboard shops in King of Prussia, Ardmore, Montgomeryville, Doylestown, Reading, Whitehall, and Exton, PA. Or you can visit them online at buckmans.com.
You're listening to the JR McGee Show. To participate on the show, call us and leave a voicemail. Our number is 267-935-9042. You can also email JR McGee your thoughts or questions you'd like him to address. Just send us an email to jrmcgeeradio@gmail.com. Now, from WMPV Lansdale, here is JR McGee.
Welcome back. And as we close out tonight's session, we're continuing to look at what's happening in the Gaza Strip with the Palestinians and the Israelis this week. And the Israelis have already taken some action. As I mentioned earlier, there's already been 4 border incursions where the Palestinians have been testing the border. The Israelis have already reacted to that. This week, on Wednesday, Chief of Staff Major General Gadi Eisenkot, he had a ceremony where he replaced Major General Herzi Halevi, and he moved him from the Director of Military Intelligence to the commander of the IDF Southern Command. This is where the incursions took place. So Southern Command now has a new commander. And then Major General Tamir Heyman has been promoted to replace Halevi in military intelligence. Eisenkot, who's the commander over both of these, had a very interesting comment in all of this. He says, we've got to look inward and draw lessons in a way that's professional and modest. That's an interesting comment. It shows that they are very concerned with learning lessons from what has occurred. And frankly, I am surprised that they did it 4 times successfully. That's scary. So I'm not surprised that the commander was replaced. But I'm impressed with the fact that they're saying that we have to do this in a way that's professional and modest. That means that they're going to work very hard not to overreact. They're going to try to minimize casualties. They're going to do everything that they can to secure their borders in a way that does not harm innocent civilians, especially women and children. In addition, Israel's taken the steps to close the border crossings for the next week. They're shutting this down. It starts tomorrow during the Hebrew Passover. It's going to take effect for another week. So they're going to shut down the border crossings, and they're going to take control of the situation to the best degree possible, and they're going to try to minimize any disturbance or unrest. And I think, again, we're seeing them take specific steps to minimize the potential harm for civilians. Again, I'm going to say this. Israel goes to greater lengths and takes more steps to protect innocent civilians than any other military that I know of or that I've read about in history. They go to extraordinary lengths. In fact, they place their own soldiers at risk and in jeopardy. They've had their own Israeli soldiers killed in order to protect Palestinian civilians. Think about that for a second. That's a significant statement for a military to be willing to sacrifice their own soldiers to protect innocent civilians for people who are trying to harm them. That's extraordinary. I think that this week we're going to see some extraordinary things in the Middle East, things that we've never seen in my lifetime, things you've never seen in your lifetime. And it's going to start Friday, and it's going to escalate. It's going to escalate and get worse and worse over the next 6 weeks. This has all started this week. It's come to a head very quickly. Israel has taken some steps. They've flown a mission into Iraq. Don't underestimate how powerful a message that is to the Iranians. They flew through Syria, they flew through Iraq, they flew into Iran. That's a powerful message to the Russians. It's a very powerful message to the Iranians. And frankly, it's a message to the Palestinians that Israel still has tremendous capabilities. I think that we're going to see a great deal of restraint. And I'm anxious to see how they do this because they're in a very difficult situation. And I think the Palestinians are going to try to use everything in their power to create a situation that puts them back in the driver's seat. I think that they're doing this to regain leverage for the negotiations for their state, their two-state solution. And I think Mahmoud Abbas, who has health problems, may not be the president much longer. And there's not a very clear secession plan for the Palestinians. So they have to do something quickly while they still have a coherent power structure. So I think all of these are driving these actions that are going to start tomorrow. And I think we're going to see that this could be the start of a major peace initiative, or it could be the preview to the next major war in the Middle East. And I pray that it is peace. I want to thank my board man, Mark Driver. I want to thank my producer, Chris O'Brien. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your emails and your messages. I've gotten some very positive feedback on the show. If you have questions that you want me to answer or you got topics that you want me to cover, email me. We'll be talking with you soon. Good night and God bless.